Thank you, and first of all, I'm so sorry for the delay. I don't want to say the airline that was late. I will just say that it was not Alitalia, and I was flying from Paris, so stop. I'll try to add some key points on the very interesting debate we heard. One, on the economic, institutional, and political changes that the crisis brought us. And these changes are so important and so relevant. After 5, 6, 7 years of crisis, all the landscape changed. So the political landscape, the economic landscape, what are the consequences of that? Second, the governance report and some key points that I try to pick up, and points that I think that it will be interesting to follow. So some ideas on what to do after the governance report reading. And one final conclusion that is a sort of dream. So I don't know if the dream is the good way to conclude something about EMU, the euro, and so on. But I will try. My first point is about the changes due to the economic and financial crisis. First, a big change in the economic system. In many countries, this change is linked to the way in which the economic system and companies, firms, entrepreneurs are working. Those working with the domestic market usually are in difficulty all over Europe. Those working at the global level are performing very well. That is a big division, a big separation in the system. It is the experience of Italy, of course, but it is not only Italy. The way in which this kind of competitiveness that we are trying to take again and to have again is also linked to the situation that is completely different today in comparison with 7 or 8 years ago in terms of the so-called traditional Maastricht criteria. The debt is high in all the European countries, and at the Eurozone level, the situation is still variable in the different countries. We have some countries growing faster, and other like mine and others still in difficulty in terms of growth. These kind of different situation has the youth unemployment as the maybe more relevant problem, because we are from the 50 or the 40% that Spain and Italy and Portugal have to the completely different situation here in Germany, in the Netherlands, in France, and so on and so forth. And in my view, I always thought that the youth unemployment rate is one of the most crucial indicators, one of the most crucial problems that we have. And of course, the change during the crisis, for instance, Italy, Spain, Portugal, we moved from 15% to 40, 50%. That is dramatic in terms of consequences. The second point on the changes is linked to the institutional changes. We have to be very frank among us. A sort of earthquake came to the European equilibrium. You mentioned the European Council role. In 5 years, 6 years' time, the European Council became the pillar of the European architecture. That is, in my view, not a good news, to be very frank, because of many consequences, many negative consequences of that. But if we try to give an evaluation today, after 5 or 7, 8 years of this crisis, the big change is the role, the raising role of the European Council today, the predominant role of the European Council, and I want to be very frank, and the collapse in the role of the European Commission. That was the case at the end of last legislature. It was absolutely clear. Today, and this legislature is trying to maybe have a sort of new chance for the European Commission to play a leadership role, as the European Commission played in the past. But it will be really the last chance for the European Commission to lead. And what is very strange and very contradictory is the fact that the European Commission is in crisis and was in crisis in the period in which the European Commission got a lot of new powers, because the Euro treaties, the fiscal compact and the rest of the Euro treaties, gave to the European Commission a lot of new powers and a lot of new tools to be absolutely predominant in the relationship with the national authorities, in preparing the budgets and approving the budgets and so on and so forth. But the contradiction is big power and very weak legitimacy today in the sort of triangle or in the European institutional architecture. The other big change is the new role of the ECB. It is not easy for me to speak about the ECB here, but I had the chance to discuss about the Mario Draghi and the ECB in Frankfurt with Ottmar Issing, so I'm ready to discuss on these issues in a very easy way. But the key point here is we have to understand that the challenge of an ECB, very effective and successful, is a challenge that is maybe the core of the discussion of the future, because we have in the middle, in the center today, the ECB, with the good performances and with the relationship with some positive results in the real economy. But we have also, and we know very well, that the other part of the problem is the fact that the ECB is not a parliament, is not a government without a democratic accountability as the government has or the parliament has. So the problem of the role of the ECB and the relationship with the democratic legitimacy is a crucial role in a moment, in a period in which the people are asking for more accountability and more democratic transparency. And we are proposing to them that the ECB can solve the problems in a period in which a part of the population, all the polls are saying that is the case in many European countries, a part of the population is asking less democracy in exchange with more efficiency of the system. So we are in the middle of this discussion. I think it is a very interesting discussion, of course, but it is a crucial discussion, and this raising role of the ECB is today one of the key points, because it is absolutely clear that is in these 3 months the situation changed for the better. The euro rates in comparison with the dollar are today one of the reasons of the possibility of a recovery around Europe, and the same is for the low interest rates. Of course, we have the chance also of the oil price that is out of our control. But this is the key point today. It is not easy, of course, it is very difficult. We But we have to discuss on this key point of this new institutional architecture that is the way to, and I will be very frank, I completely share what Henrik said just some minute before, saying that we need to have a strong European leadership, not national leadership, but European leadership, presenting a clear roadmap in saying what we want to do in 5 years' time. It is the only possibility to have in this legislature something of concrete, of positive and effective. The third big change is in the relationship between the European institutions and the voters. I put this change at the same level or the other two because, for instance, two countries that are the second and the third economies in the euro area are affected by the same virus. And the virus is the fact that these two countries, founders of the European Union, always very pro-European integration, maybe Italy more than France, are today affected by the big rise of the anti-European mood. And in the polls, in all the polls we are having and we are evaluating, the Eurobarometer is one of them, we have the situation in which the negative approach towards the European Union today is overcoming the positive approach. So we have to be very cautious on that. We need to be aware of this situation. It is not just an Italian and French situation, it is around Europe. And the key point is that the crisis is giving the birth of many anti-European populist parties in a very strange situation because we have a separation between the European Parliament and Germany on the one hand, and Spain, UK, Italy, and France on the other hand. And the situation in the European Parliament is not the same that is today in all the other countries, but Germany. Because we, in the European Parliament, there's a continuity in the idea of having two pillars, center left, center right, and these two pillars are together the majority of the system and they are running the system. Like it was in other European countries where the two main parties together were 5 years ago the 80% of the voters. It was the case in Spain, in France, in Italy, in the UK, in the UK, yes. And today, in the next elections that we are having in the UK or in Spain in December, we will see the difference between being the two main parties, the 80% of the voters, and moving to be less than 50% of the voters. That is the case, for instance, in Spain. So the key point is that the German political situation and the European Parliament political situation is not the situation that is dominating in all the other main European countries. And of course, this, in my view, this is one of the key points of the discussion we are having. So my key point on the governance report, and I just end up very quickly, the governance report offers a lot of tools and a lot of keys that are, in my view, very interesting because of this method of interdisciplinarity approach that is, I think, one of the most interesting aspects of the report. There's a big crisis of legitimacy of the European Union today, but also there's, I think, in my view, I am a very pro-European, I'm completely aware of the fact that the European Union is the only way and the only tool, the only future we can have to be, in the word of tomorrow, as Europeans, not marginal in the world. This point will be my conclusion. And so some key points on how to exploit this report. I agree, we need to continue on the path of national structural reforms, and it is important that the European Union and European authorities continue to push and to oblige when it is necessary to have and to approve and to enforce national structural reforms. We need to apply all the new tools in the hands of the Commission, the new tools in the hand of the Commission to enhance structural convergence among the different countries. We need this roadmap that Henrik mentioned. We need to apply the Juncker plan, but we need also to change the Juncker plan, because the first approach, in my view, is not the positive one. We risk to have a big boomerang because of the raise of the expectations around the Juncker plan. The leverage is too high, in my view, but not only my view, it's, I think, a common evaluation. And there are many problems there, but we can't allow the Juncker plan to fail, because today it is one of the pillars of the big general architecture we build up. We need to work more on the preventive arms than to the sanctions, because we understood that the sanction system doesn't work. It is not an effective way to manage the European concrete real economy. And that brings me to Greece, because we have to be very clear. In these very days, I think the general mood around Brussels, around Berlin, Frankfurt, and so on, is that we are preparing ourselves to leave the Greece out of the European of the Eurozone. In my view, it is a big mistake. It is a big mistake, because if we start to have such a break with Greece after 5 years, 6 years of 3 intervention and so on and so forth, the message that we are giving to the rest of the world is that Euro crisis, years and years of Euro crisis, then they are not able to manage the problem of the 2% of their GDP, because Greece is the 2% of our GDP, and maybe the UK also will Brexit. So I can imagine what is the feeling of an investor in Shanghai or in Dubai. The feeling is that, okay, Europe is not serious, is not serious, and it's not for the future. It's something that is with a lot of problems. So I think we have to manage this Greek situation with all the problems. I know very well the problems. I had many talks with Mr. Varoufakis. When you talk with Mr. Varoufakis, the first, it is not easy to say what I'm saying. We have to keep Greece on board for sure. But we have to do it. It's absolutely necessary in my view, because if not, the general picture, the big picture, will be very bad for all of us. That brings me to the final point, is that I am really convinced that we don't, we need to keep Greece on board, but because we need also to keep the UK on board, the only further integration that we can have at the European level is at 19. And we have to be very pragmatic on that. We can't have more, we can't have further integration at 28, because if not, we will lose the UK. And in my view, it is a very bad idea to help Farage in his idea. So we need to work to keep the UK on board, and to do that, the only way is to focus the further integration process at 19, so at the euro area level. That is, of course, not easy for many institutional reasons. The only institution we have at 19 is the ECB, for instance. So we need to try to rethink all the big picture around the problem, but in my view, it is the only way to go on the track to have further integration, and we need to have further integration. And it is, in my view, the big mission of this legislature is to change direction and to work on this direction. Why I mentioned at the beginning the idea of the big picture and the mission and so on and so forth. But for a very clear and very easy message that I think we need to change our narrative around the need to have more Europe in the future. It is not because of Kohl and Mitterrand in Verdun, hand in hand, saying that no more wars, because it is a very important message, but for today's voters, this message is nothing, and we have to be completely aware of that. The only possibility, in my view, is to be very clear in explaining that in 10 years' time, for us, for the Europeans, the choice is between two options. And the two options are to be the rule takers in the world or the rule setters in the world, or to be among the rule setters in the world. The world of tomorrow will be the world dominated by China and by the United States and by the other rising countries. In this new situation, the only possibility is to be there at their level to be rule setters. And when I say rules, I say environment, I say right of workers, democracy, and so on and so forth. But the only possibility is to do that if we are together. Because alone, none of the European countries will be at the level to be among the rule setters. If we go divided and separated there, fragmented, we will be all rule takers. And the rules will be written by others. And frankly speaking, I would like for my kids to leave them a world in which they can be there as Europeans, among Europeans, in the rest of the world, but with the possibility for us, the Europeans, to be among those who are setting the rules, and not in the opposite way. This is, in my view, the key point, and it is a message that is not easy, of course, to explain. It is not easy to say, but it is the true message if we look at the future and if you try to have a general overview on the future. And I think it is necessary today to have some European voices starting to say like that our future is a common future or is a decadent future, is a declining future. This is the key point. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Enrico. Please.